I never expected my life to veer off a cliff in a single breath. You can yearn for something for years and then discover, when it finally arrives, that it is nothing like the picture you carried in your head. That truth struck the instant I held my son, the child I had prayed for. He was only minutes old, warm and fragile in my arms, yet confusion cinched my chest. I should have felt unfiltered joy, kissed my wife's forehead, and thanked fate for making me a father. Instead, dread crept in. His hair, his eyes, the way his mouth curved did not echo me at all. I told myself newborns can look generic, that hospital lights distort everything, but the unease kept pulsing. Alyssa, drenched in sweat and empty from the effort, slumped against her pillow. The delivery had been rough, so I swallowed my doubts and pulled on a smile. "He is here, Liz. Our prayers were heard." She nodded, love bright in her gaze, but there was something else. A cautious scan of my face, as if she were measuring my reaction. That should have been the sign that something was very wrong. We had been married just shy of 6 years. For 5 of them, we tried to conceive. We visited clinics and sat under the bright focus of fertility specialists and counselors. They tested everything: her hormones, her cycle, my count and motility. Every page stamped normal. Each result told us we were completely capable of having a child, yet month after month turned up empty. Heartbreak arrived like clockwork with her period and left us hollowed out. By the 3rd year, Alyssa came to me wringing her hands, wearing the anxious look she got whenever she expected me to argue. "Mark," she said quietly, "maybe we should consider a donor." The words rattled around my ribs. I knew exactly what she meant. Donor seed. I had no evidence I was the problem, but the thought that she might doubt me stung. More than that, I wanted our child to be ours. I wanted my grandmother's green eyes, or my father's stubborn chin, to tumble into the next generation. The idea of raising a child with another man's DNA set my teeth on edge. My answer came out too sharp, though I tried to soften it. "No. I am sorry, Liz. That does not work for me. We keep trying. One day it will happen." She held my gaze for a long moment, those dark, searching eyes looking straight through me. "But it has been years, and every doctor says we are fine. Why can't we?" "No." I repeated it more firmly, and felt guilt bite the inside of my stomach. She did not push again. Her quiet acceptance should have told me she had another plan forming, but I let the relief of having the final word lull me. We kept trying, breaking our hearts in the same pattern. Then Alyssa missed a period, and a test strip turned positive. I fell to my knees and cried. 5 years of prayers finally lifted. The pregnancy passed with the usual nausea and fatigue, but she kept insisting on going to appointments on her own. "You are working like crazy, Mark. These are routine checks." I wanted to be there and felt guilty every time I missed, but I let it go. I did not see a deeper reason. When the day arrived, the labor was a battle. Our son Noah cried his first breath into the room, and when the nurse placed him in my arms, unease rose again. I tried to ignore it and drowned myself in fatherly tasks back home. I fed him, changed diapers, paced the floor at 2 in the morning, whispered lullabies in the dark. Alyssa watched him with adoration, but her gaze flickered with worry whenever she caught me studying his face. I blamed it on postpartum fear. Still, something gnawed. Noah's hair grew darker and wavier than mine. His ears had a shape that did not exist on my side. Babies change, I told myself. Wait and a trace of yourself will show. It never did. Weeks turned into months. The more Noah's features settled, the less he resembled me. Strangers noticed. People would tilt their head and say, "He must take after your wife's side," or ask whether her father came from a different ethnicity. I forced a smile while my stomach turned. Alyssa guarded him in small ways, even from me, flinching if I looked too long. I started to wonder whether she had gone behind my back and used a donor. I fought the thought at first. Alyssa would not do that. Yet Noah grew, and the idea hung around like a shadow. If that was the truth, why wouldn't she admit it, knowing how badly I wanted a child? Maybe she assumed I would never accept it. An evening found me tidying the living room when I noticed Alyssa staring at a photo on her phone, face shuttered. The picture showed an older man with a strong jaw, a faint smirk, dark waves of hair. She killed the screen before I could catch the name. I pretended I had not seen, but unease deepened. Was that a donor? A few nights later, around 2 a.m, Noah woke and cried. I lifted him from the crib and hummed to soothe him. In the glow of the nightlight, I traced the lines of his face and felt a jolt of recognition that scared me cold. A resemblance to someone I had never considered. Alyssa's late ex-husband, Lucas Bennett. He had died in an accident years before Alyssa and I reconnected. She never gave me details, only that grief had torn her open. I scolded myself for the thought. Lucas was gone. Fear was making me irrational. Yet the small slope of Noah's nose and the way his eyebrows sat summoned a photo Alyssa had once shown me, worn at the edges. I remembered the intensity in that man's eyes. He had never seemed like a threat because he was a photograph. That night my heart hammered while I set Noah down and stared into the dark for hours. I started searching quietly when Alyssa ran errands. Drawers, old boxes, the attic. I told myself I would find nothing and feel foolish, but I could not stop. In a cracked trunk in the farthest corner of our storage room, I found a folder that froze my blood. Genome preservation. The letterhead read, Harbor West Cryogenics and Fertility, Sperm Preservation. The name on the intake form was Lucas Bennett. The date was months before his death. There were boxes about posthumous use, storage conditions, and a heavy disclaimer. Release only to spouse or authorized partner named below. Alyssa's name sat there in ink. My hands shook so badly I could hardly hold the pages. There were more forms, some dated just after the accident, others marking recent consultations. The recent ones fell squarely within our marriage. Payment receipts aligned with the timeline of her pregnancy confirmation. My stomach turned to stone. If these documents were real, Alyssa had used Lucas's preserved sample to get pregnant. I felt anger, horror, betrayal, heartbreak, each one landing like a punch. Why would she do this? Another thought followed that felt worse. She knew I would never agree, so she hid it, used my longing for a child to push it through. I sealed the documents in a plastic sleeve, carried them upstairs, and locked them in my desk. I wanted to confront her immediately, but reason hissed at me to wait. I needed a full picture and a plan. Noah's first birthday was weeks away. I decided to gather everything, wait until the day, and lay it out in one blunt cut if I had to. After that, every conversation with Alyssa felt strained. She sensed something in me and asked if I was all right. I told her I was fine and smiled in a way that fooled no one. Late nights I opened our banking site and found payments to Harbor West Cryogenics. The pattern built itself. Over a year before Noah's birth, Alyssa had booked a procedure at a clinic that worked with the cryobank. The calendar entries matched the day she told me the pregnancy was confirmed. I was furious and grieving at once. I had trusted her and stayed away from appointments because she had asked. I never imagined my own wife would use a dead man sample and pass the child off as mine. The morning of Noah's first birthday arrived under a wet sky. Alyssa had planned a small gathering, just us, her parents Victor and Elaine, and a couple of close friends. My plan was to tear off the mask. An afternoon appointment with my attorney was already on the calendar. I had the cryobank paperwork, financial records, and a recent comparison test that made it clear I was not the biological father. At 2, guests arrived in a light drizzle. Elaine cooed and pinched Noah's cheeks. We lit a white cake with a single candle in the shape of a 1. Noah clapped and smeared frosting on his face. Alyssa glanced at me with that guarded spark again. She asked if I wanted to say a few words. She expected a sweet toast. I cleared my throat and said I had news about Noah's paternity. Shock snapped across her face. A friend coughed and stared at the floor. Alyssa tried to laugh it off, asked what I was talking about, but I cut her off. I know about Lucas. I found the documents in the basement. the cryobank forms, the clinic bills. I know Noah is not mine. Silence crashed into the room. Victor's jaw locked. Elaine's eyebrows knit. Alyssa went white. Voices erupted at once. Elaine demanded to know what I meant. Victor barked that I was ruining the day with nonsense. I opened the folder and laid pages on the coffee table. Here is the contract with Lucas Bennett's name. Here is the clinic schedule a year before Noah's birth. Here are the bank statements. I have blood work that shows I am not the biological father. The room fell into a terrible quiet. Alyssa looked like her legs might give out. Noah, oblivious, burbled and pressed frosting into her sleeve. Victor stared at his daughter. Tell me this is a misunderstanding. Alyssa gulped and whispered that she had used Lucas's sample. We wanted a baby for so long, and Mark refused any donor. I did not think he would accept it. Elaine shouted, asking when Alyssa planned to tell anyone and calling it madness. Alyssa sobbed. You have to believe me. I did it for us. It is not like I cheated with a living person. Lucas was gone. I felt disgust rise in my throat. You lied. You let me believe Noah was mine through the whole pregnancy. You had me sign the birth certificate. You made me a legal father on purpose. That is paternity fraud. We are finished. Alyssa fell to her knees, clutching Noah, tears streaking her face. She begged me to talk, said we could fix it, said she was going to tell me but was afraid. I backed away, shaking with anger. I told her I had already filed for divorce and would pursue her for paternity fraud. Elaine called me heartless and said a real man would stand by his family. Victor sneered that if my equipment was faulty, that was not his problem. Heat flashed to my face. Do not call me less of a man. Your daughter orchestrated this. She used her dead ex-husband's sample and tricked me. Get out. Victor puffed up and threatened to take me for child support. I told him to try and shoved past when he blocked the door. A friend stepped in to keep it from turning into a fistfight while Noah began to wail. Alyssa screamed my name through tears. I opened the door and told everyone to leave. They threw accusations over their shoulders, but they left. Alyssa stood shaking, eyes red, and I told her to get out too. She said this was our home. I told her that ended when she betrayed me, and that I would call the police if she refused. She grabbed the diaper bag, hugged Noah, and stepped into the rain. Hours slid by. I stared at the wreckage of the party, icing congealing on a paper plate. A single candle burned down to a nub. Part of me raged, and part of me ached. Near 1 a.m, a friend called to say Alyssa was at the hospital after fainting. He urged me to go. I said I would think about it, and did not go. Earlier, my attorney had told me I had a strong case. With deliberate deception proven, child support would not stick. I had the documents. The phone rang again and again, numbers I did not answer. The next morning, a heavy pounding shook my door. Victor and Elaine stood on the threshold, hollow-eyed. Elaine's cheeks were streaked with tears. Victor jabbed a finger into my chest and snarled that Alyssa was in the hospital because of me. I told him she was there because of her lies. Elaine called me self-righteous and said I had a responsibility to my family. I laughed without humor and told her my responsibility ended when Alyssa broke our vows. She claimed Alyssa did it for both of us. I snapped that we had tests, that we were fine, that Alyssa refused to accept that sometimes it takes time, and instead chose a dead man's seed. Victor stepped toward me with a closed fist. I caught his wrist and told him not to make it worse. He stumbled back into Elaine. Tears broke loose again. They said they had welcomed me. I told them they had welcomed my wallet and the illusion of me as a father. They threatened lawsuits. I told them to do whatever they wanted and shut the door. 2 days later, my attorney confirmed Alyssa had been discharged. She was staying with Victor and Elaine so they could hover over her and the baby. My lawyer, a deliberate older man named Mr. Beckman, paged through the stack I had assembled. Cryobank forms, clinic invoices, a copy of Noah's birth certificate. He tapped the pages with a careful finger. Clear case. We will file for divorce on grounds of deception and petition to disclaim paternity. You should request immediate genetic testing, although the cryobank trail already paints the picture. If Alyssa fights it, we subpoena the bank. They will confirm she used Lucas Bennett's sample. There is also the ethical mess around posthumous use. In many places, it is allowed only with express prior consent. Whether or not that applies here, the deception is the spine of this. Given the paperwork, child support should not attach. She deliberately misled you into assuming legal fatherhood. Relief did not feel like relief. It landed heavy in my chest. I did not want to punish a child I had rocked at 2 in the morning. I loved him, but I could not keep living inside a lie. We wrapped the meeting. He said the petition would be filed before the week closed, and that service would follow. 3 evenings later, a knock sounded close to dusk. I opened the door, expecting Victor's temper. Alyssa stood there instead. She looked smaller somehow, eyes raided by sleep loss. Sleeves swallowed her hands. For a breath, I saw the woman from our gentle days, and had to set my jaw so my resolve would not slip. "What do you want?" I asked. She asked for 10 minutes. I let her in. She perched on the edge of the couch and twisted her fingers. "You filed for divorce." I got the papers. I said yes. She drew a shaky breath. "Mark, you have every reason to be furious. Please hear me. You would not agree to a donor, and I was terrified of running out of time. Every month felt like a door closing. I remembered that Lucas had left a preserved sample before the accident. We had planned a family once, but never got to it. I told myself it was not a stranger. I told myself this could be the bridge. If it worked, we would have a baby. You would be a father. I convinced myself you would love him and never need to know. I thought love would make it harmless. You decided our marriage could hold the weight of a ghost, I said. Did you ever plan to tell me before making me sign papers and swear a role I did not own? She wiped her face. I was afraid you would leave. I thought if you held him, you would not care about the details. I know that sounds unhinged. I was drowning in longing and fear. Desperation is not a license to lie. You forged a path I would never have chosen. You made me a legal father to another man's child without my consent. That is not partnership. That is betrayal. She put a hand to her chest as if steadying her heart. I love you, Mark. Even now, I love you. If we cannot save the marriage, can we try therapy to at least craft an arrangement for Noah? He deserves a steady father figure, and you have already bonded. Stop. The child I bonded with was built on a false premise. I am not Noah's father. He is Lucas's son, summoned by technology, and a secret you kept. She stood and reached out. I stepped back. Do not touch me. If you want me to sign, I will, she said with a rasp. I am begging you not to sue me for damages. I cannot carry a court battle on top of everything else. Hospital bills are piling up. My parents are tapped out. I will lose everything. You cannot handle it. I felt a bitter laugh claw at my throat. My world exploded, and you want mercy because consequences feel heavy. You let me dream about seeing my own features in him. You watched me search his face and never said a word. She shook with quiet sobs. I know I was wrong. We loved each other once. I did this for us. No. You did it for your hope and your fear. You took away my choice. Get out. We will see each other in court. She stared at me as if trying to memorize a face she would not see again. I really did love you, she whispered. I wish you could believe that. She left, shut the door softly, and the apartment rang with the kind of silence that hums. 3 weeks later, the machine of legal process was in full motion. Service had been completed. Alyssa was on record. My name came off the property deed with a filing that locked everything down. The mortgage had been mine alone before the wedding, so the eviction notice was largely symbolic, a line in the sand. Her parents tried one last round of pressure. They called to say I owed spousal support and threatened to poison my name in the local press. I saved the voicemails and sent them to Beckman. Then I blocked their numbers. The house felt like a shell. But at least it was mine, clear of their voices. Days stretched and folded into themselves. The noise of a baby in the night vanished, and the quiet sometimes felt like a physical weight. I kept repeating that it was better than living inside a false story. That did not stop the late-hour recollections from burning. I would see myself in the delivery room and feel my throat tighten. Eventually, exhaustion would pull me down. The hearings began. The cryobank paperwork and billing trail did their work. A court-ordered DNA test came back and put an official stamp on what I already knew. My name was removed from the birth certificate. The judge called it deception and false representation inside a marriage. Paternity fraud was recognized and legal obligations severed. Alyssa attended each session, pale and drawn, Noah balanced on her hip or in a stroller, wide eyes tracking the fluorescent ceiling. I reminded myself he had no idea, and that I was not his father. That thought felt like tearing skin. On the last day, the judge granted the divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and deception as the primary causes. The gavel came down. Alyssa wept softly. Elaine shot me a look that mixed fury and contempt. Victor did not appear. I did not speak. I gathered my copy of the order, put it in the folder that had once held the cryobank forms, and walked out of the building into a grey afternoon that smelled like rain. Outside the courthouse, the air was thick with drizzle. Cars crawled by, spraying water from their tires. I stood for a while on the steps, my briefcase heavy in my hand, unsure where to go. For 6 years, everything in my life had revolved around Alyssa. Her appointments, her moods, her tears, her hope. Now it was all over, reduced to a stamp on a piece of paper. I should have felt free, but freedom tasted hollow. I walked to the parking lot, climbed into my car, and just sat there, staring at the dashboard until the rain blurred the windshield into grey streaks. When I finally turned the key and drove off, I didn't go home right away. Instead, I headed to the lake on the outskirts of town, the one where we'd had our first picnic as newlyweds. The benches were slick with rain, the water rippled by wind, but I didn't care. I sat down and tried to remember the version of her I fell in love with, the woman who laughed easily, who held my hand when the doctor said we might have trouble conceiving. That woman was gone. Or maybe she had never really existed. A few ducks drifted near the shore, pecking at the surface. I watched them until the clouds began to break, revealing a pale slice of evening sky. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Mark," a voice said softly. "Alyssa." I didn't speak. "I'm sorry to call," she continued, "but I wanted you to know we're moving. My parents found a small place a few towns over. It's temporary, but we can't stay here anymore. Too many memories." I said nothing. "I didn't call to ask for anything," she added quickly. "I just wanted to say thank you for the time we did have, for the way you loved Noah, even if it wasn't meant to last. I hope someday you can forgive me." Her voice trembled, and for a moment, I almost softened. Almost. "I don't know if I ever can," I said quietly, "but I hope you find whatever peace you're looking for." There was a pause. I heard Noah babbling faintly in the background. Then the line went dead. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked through the silent house, every room echoing with ghosts of what used to be. The nursery with its soft blue walls, the kitchen where we'd planned names, the hallway where I once hung tiny photos of ultrasound scans. I stood in the doorway of the nursery the longest. The crib was gone. I'd donated it the week before, but the faint imprint of it still marked the carpet. I imagined Noah's small hands gripping the rails, his laugh when I made ridiculous faces. Then I shut the door for the last time. The following months moved in slow motion. Work filled the days, but nights stretched endlessly. People at the office tried to be kind, saying things like, "At least it's over," or "You can start fresh now." None of them understood that it wasn't just a marriage ending. It was the death of an entire identity. I wasn't a husband. I wasn't a father. I was just a man with too much silence. One afternoon, a certified envelope arrived. Final settlement documents. Attached was a letter from Beckman congratulating me on a favorable resolution. I tossed it onto the counter and stared at it for a long time. Favorable. What a strange word. A week later, I decided to take a trip. I packed a single duffel bag, got into my car, and started driving with no destination in mind. The highway stretched ahead like an empty ribbon. For hours, I let the landscape roll by. Gas stations, rest stops, endless fields. Somewhere past the county line, I stopped for coffee at a roadside diner. The waitress, a woman with silver hair and tired eyes, smiled at me. "Rough day?" she asked. "Rough year," I replied. She poured the coffee and said, "You look like a man who's just starting over. That's never easy, but sometimes it's the only way." Her words lingered long after I left, starting over. Maybe that was the point. By early spring, I had sold the house. Too many memories anchored in those walls. I rented a small apartment downtown. 1 bedroom, simple, quiet. The kind of place where no one knew me, where I could walk to work and fade into the rhythm of the city. I changed my number, deleted old photos, and boxed up the few keepsakes I couldn't bear to throw away. Sometimes I'd catch myself wondering about Noah, whether he had started walking yet, whether he had Lucas's stubbornness or Alyssa's smile. The thought always cut deep, so I forced myself to stop. He was not my son. Not anymore. One evening, nearly a year after the divorce, I ran into someone unexpected. It was my old friend Nate, one of the guests from that disastrous birthday party. We hadn't spoken since that day. He spotted me outside a bookstore and waved. "Mark, man, I didn't think I'd ever see you again." We grabbed a drink at a nearby bar. Conversation was awkward at first, then easier. He told me he'd moved on from that job, that life had taken strange turns for everyone since the party. "How's Alyssa?" he asked carefully. I hesitated, then shrugged. "No idea. Haven't heard from her since the call." He nodded slowly. "I saw her once, actually. A few months back. She was at the park with the kid. Looked different, quieter. But the boy looked happy, healthy." I sipped my drink, feeling something twist inside me. Not anger this time, just emptiness. "Good," I said finally. "That's good." We talked about other things until the conversation drifted to silence. When I walked home that night, the city lights shimmered against the wet pavement. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel weighed down by rage. Just tired. Days turned into months. I started jogging in the mornings, picked up old hobbies, even met people again. Life didn't heal cleanly. It left scars, but it moved forward anyway. Sometimes, in the early light, when the city was still quiet, I thought of Noah and whispered a silent goodbye to the version of myself that had once been his father. And one morning, standing on my balcony watching the sunrise wash the sky in pale gold, I finally said the words out loud. "It's over." The wind carried them away, and for the first time since everything began, I believed them.